You've seen it everywhere, right? That bright, golden spice that's suddenly in everything from our curries to our fancy morning lattes. Turmeric. It's being pushed as this miracle superfood, packed into supplements and sold as something you absolutely have to be taking. But what happens when we look past all that hype? Okay, let's really dive into this.
I mean, just look at this list of claims. It's kind of massive. People are suggesting it for incredibly serious things like cancer and depression, all the way down to everyday stuff like the common cold, and, well, even for flatulence and leech bites. You know, whenever one single thing is supposed to fix all of this, that's our cue to start asking some pretty serious questions.
So that leads us to the most important question, doesn't it? We've got to separate the marketing from the actual medicine. Does this ancient spice really hold up when we put it under a modern scientific microscope? Let's dig into the evidence.
To figure this out, we first need to understand what researchers are actually studying. And spoiler alert, it's probably about the stuff that's sitting in your spice rack.
Okay, here's the first key detail that almost always gets lost in translation. Scientists aren't really studying the spice you sprinkle on your food. They're zeroing in on one specific chemical inside it called curcumin, and they use these super concentrated extracts of it for their research. That is an absolutely critical distinction.
So when we actually put the claims up against the real clinical evidence, the picture starts to get a whole lot clearer. Over on the left, we've got a small handful of things where these extracts are considered possibly effective. But then look to the right. It's listed as possibly ineffective for huge conditions like Alzheimer's and stomach ulcers. And notice that word they keep using, possibly. Even where there might be a benefit, it's definitely not a slam dunk.
But let's look at one of the more promising areas, just to be fair. For folks with osteoarthritis, some studies have actually shown that certain turmeric extracts can reduce pain about as well as ibuprofen. Now that's a genuinely interesting finding. But notice, it's a very specific benefit for a very specific condition, not some kind of cure-all.
And now for the big one. The number one thing you hear about turmeric is that it's this amazing anti-inflammatory. Well, this quote from Medscape really cuts straight to the point. It says the claims are not supported by strong studies. That's a huge disconnect between what's being marketed and what the high-quality evidence is telling us.
But you know, this isn't just a story about unproven benefits. We also have to talk about the potential for actual harm, which is something that gets completely ignored on those wellness blogs and on the product labels themselves.
Yeah, taking medicinal amounts of turmeric is definitely not risk-free for everybody. If you've got gallbladder problems, it can make them worse. It might slow down blood clotting, which is seriously dangerous if you have a bleeding disorder. And because it could act like estrogen, it's a real concern for people with hormone-sensitive conditions like breast cancer. It could even affect male fertility, and there are growing concerns about liver damage. I mean, this is serious stuff.
And there are two more huge warnings for an even wider group of people. First, taking it in medicinal doses during pregnancy is considered likely unsafe. It might stimulate the uterus. And second, and this is for anyone, because it can affect blood clotting, you have to stop taking it at least 2 full weeks before any scheduled surgery to avoid the risk of bleeding too much.
So beyond your personal health, there's another massive risk factor that we have to talk about: how turmeric interacts with other medicines you might be taking. And this is where things can get really, really dangerous.
This number right here kind of says it all. 18. According to Medscape, there are 18 different medications that need close monitoring if you're taking turmeric because of major interactions. And that's not even a complete list. It's just a snapshot of the known dangers.
So how does this even happen? Well, think of your liver as a busy processing plant. It's got this enzyme system that's like an assembly line for breaking down medications. What turmeric can do is slow down one of the main assembly lines. This creates a backlog, which means the levels of other drugs in your system can start to build up, sometimes to dangerous, even toxic levels.
And look, this affects some incredibly common and life-saving medications. We're talking blood thinners like warfarin, drugs for diabetes, and even powerful medications for organ transplant patients, pain management, and seizures. The potential outcomes here, like a higher risk of bleeding or your blood sugar dropping way too low, are no joke.
Okay, so after weighing the pretty limited evidence against some very real, very serious risks, what's the bottom line? Why is there such a massive gap between the marketing hype and the scientific reality? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is a term called low bioavailability. It's just a scientific way of saying that your body is actually really bad at absorbing curcumin. So when you eat it, a tiny, tiny fraction of that active compound ever makes it into your bloodstream to do, well, anything. This is a major reason why exciting results that scientists see in a lab dish just don't happen in actual human beings.
So when you put it all together,
the weak evidence from most of the claims on one side and the known risks and drug interactions on the other, that golden spice really starts to lose a lot of its shine. Before you even think about starting a new supplement, the single most important thing you can do is talk to your doctor or your pharmacist. They're the ones who can help you answer the only question that matters. Is this right for you?